Hello guys, in this lecture we'll be discussing about the auditory tube in detail. So auditory tube can be a short note for you and you can also expect some MCQs to be asked from this topic, the auditory tube. So with this note, let's start today's lecture on the auditory tube. So in this lecture we'll be discussing about the parts of the auditory tube, the ends and lining of the tube, the functions of the auditory tube, the blood supply and the nerve supply of the auditory tube, and finally the applied anatomy. So as far as the examination point of view is concerned, you must concentrate on the parts, the function, and the applied anatomy of the auditory tube. So moving on to the introduction, what is an auditory tube? So the auditory tube is nothing but it is a osteocartilaginous channel connecting the nasopharynx and the tympanic cavity. So from this statement we can infer that the channel consists of two parts, a bony part and a cartilaginous part. So we'll be discussing about it in the further slides. So the auditory tube is nothing but it is an osteocartilaginous channel connecting the nasopharynx and the tympanic cavity, and it is also called as the eustachian tube or the pharyngotympanic tube. So in this figure, you can appreciate the auditory tube. So yes, so consider this shaded part as the tympanic membrane, and this area to be the consider to this to be the nasopharynx. So the tube that connects the tympanic, this is the tympanic cavity. So the tube that connects the tympanic cavity and the nasopharynx is called the auditory tube. So auditory tube is directed down. Auditory tube is directed downwards, forwards, and medially. So this it is directed downwards, forwards, and medially. So this will be the direction of the auditory tube. So moving on to the next slide, the parts of the auditory tube. So we already know that auditory tube consists of two parts, right? A bony part and the cartilaginous part. Both these parts meet at the isthmus. So we'll be discussing about it in the next slide. So yes, now moving on to the parts. So it has a consider this as the okay. This is the tympanic cavity. So this will be the so this is the tympanic cavity, and this is the nasopharynx. So we already know the auditory tube is a connection between the tympanic cavity and the nasopharynx. So this entirely is called is what is called an auditory tube. So yes, there are two parts, right? The bony part and the cartilaginous part. So the bony part is 1/3 the entire length, and the cartilaginous part is 2/3 the entire length. So the bony part is present posterolaterally. So bony, this is the bony part. So this is present. So this is the bony part, and this is present posterolaterally in connection with the tympanic cavity. So the bony part is connected to the tympanic cavity posteriorly. And moving on to the cartilaginous part is the biggest, that is 2/3 the entire length, and it is connected with the uh, nasopharynx. So the part or the junction between both these parts is called the isthmus. So this is what is called the isthmus. It is the junction between the bony part and the cartilaginous part. This is what is called an isthmus. So this is the most narrowest part of the eustachian tube. So this point is the important point regarding the isthmus of the auditory tube. So isthmus is nothing but it is a junction between the bony part and the cartilaginous part, and it is the most narrowest part of eustachian tube. The point we infer from this slide is the bony part is the smallest, and it corresponds to 1/3 the entire length, and it is present posterolaterally, and the cartilaginous part is the largest part corresponding to 2/3 the entire length of the auditory tube, and it is present anteromedially. So the bony part opens into the tympanic cavity, and the cartilaginous part open into the nasopharynx. Okay, so yes, now we'll discuss about each part in detail. So we already know that the bony part is the posterolateral part of the auditory tube, and it is 1/3 the length of the entire auditory tube. So it lies between the tympanic and petrous part of the temporal bone. So yes, consider, okay, this is the bony part, right? So bony part opens, it is, so it is one third the length of entire tube. It is present posterolaterally. So the bony part is present between the tympanic and the petrous part of the temporal bone. So consider this to be a bone. Yes. So this will be a tympanic part of the temporal bone, and consider here there will be a bone called the petrous part of the temporal. So this entirely is the temporal bone, and here will be the tympanic part of the temporal bone, and here will be the petrous part of the temporal bone. So the bony part is between the uh, tympanic part of the temporal bone and the petrous part of the temporal bone. So next point is it opens into the middle ear. That is, it opens into the tympanic cavity as well as the middle ear cavity. So this 4 points regarding the bony part will do. So next, moving on to the cartilaginous part. As we already know that the cartilaginous part is the anteromedial part, and it is 2/3 the length of the total length of the auditory tube. So this is the largest part of the auditory tube, right? And this lies between the greater wing of sphenoid and the apex of petrous part of temporal bone. So we already know that this is the petrous part of the temporal. So this region is the petrous part of the temporal bone, right? So this cartilaginous part lies between the petrous part of the temporal bone as well as the greater wing of sphenoid. So greater wing of sphenoid will be present somewhere here. Okay, so greater wing of sphenoid will be present somewhere here. So this cartilaginous part is present between the petrous part of the temporal bone and the greater wing of sphenoid. So this cartilaginous part will be present in a groove called the sulcus tubae. So sulcus tubae is where the cartilaginous part is located. So sulcus tubae is nothing but it is a groove between the apex of the petrous part of temporal bone and the greater wing of sphenoid bone. So in this groove this groove is where the cartilaginous part of the auditory tube lies. So summarizing both these parts, the bony part is the posterolateral part, and it is 1/3 the total length of the auditory tube. It lies between the tympanic and the petrous part of temporal bone, and it opens into the middle ear cavity. So moving on to the cartilaginous part. Cartilaginous part is the anteromedial part. It is 2/3 the length of the total length, and it lies between the greater wing of sphenoid and the apex of petrous part of a temporal bone in a groove called the sulcus tubae. So this cartilaginous part opens into the nasopharynx. An important point to be noted regarding the cartilaginous point is that the cartilaginous part is made up of a single triangular elastic fibrocartilage. So what is special in this is this single fibrocartilage, elastic fibrocartilage, curls upon itself to form the superior and the medial part of this tube. So the superior and the medial part of the tube is formed by this elastic fibrocartilage. So and the base and the lateral part of the tube is contributed by a thin fibrous membrane. So consider this to be the tube, and this part is a superior part, and inner part is what is called the medial part. So these superior and the medial part is contributed by a triangular elastic fibrocartilage, and the base and the lateral part is contributed by a thin fibrous membrane. So this is a point to be noted regarding the cartilaginous part of the auditory tube. So now moving on to the ends and lining of the tube. So as you have already seen in the figure, the tympanic end is bony and small. So we all know that the bony part opens to the tympanic end, right? So tympanic end is bony and small. On the other hand, the pharyngeal end is large and slit-like. It is slit-like because it is made up of cartilage, right? So the cartilaginous part is not that much strong. So the pharyngeal end is large and slit-like. isthmus, the ostium or the ostium at the pharyngeal end is the largest part in the entire auditory tube. So the pharyngeal end, that ostium that opens at the pharyngeal end, is the largest part of the auditory tube. So this is a point of objective type of questions. Okay, so it has two ends, the tympanic end and the pharyngeal end. The tympanic end is small and bony, whereas the pharyngeal end is large and slit-like. So moving on to the histology of auditory tube, the auditory tube is lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. So in this histological slide, you can appreciate, so these are the pseudostratified cells, right? This is pseudostratified cells. You can also appreciate the cilia, which is present over these columnar, pseudostratified columnar epithelium. So it is this auditory tube is lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. So this is also a picture. This is also a picture regarding the auditory tube. So this is a picture which I pasted here to understand the openings of the tube. So this is the shortest part. So this is the bony opening at the tympanic. So this is the bony opening in the tympanic cavity. So this is the smallest opening. So the tympanic end is small and bony, and the pharyngeal end is large. You can appreciate here, right? So this is a large opening. So pharyngeal end is large and slit-like. So yes, now moving on to the functions of the auditory tube. There are three basic functions, three important functions regarding the auditory tube. The first one is it maintains the equilibrium. The second one is it protects the middle ear. Third important function is clearance of the middle ear cavity. So yes, the first function, maintenance of equilibrium. So auditory tube helps in maintenance of equilibrium of air pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane. Okay, so the first function is that the auditory tube helps in the maintenance of air pressure equilibrium on either side of the tympanic membrane. So moving on to the second function, that is protection of middle ear. So how does auditory tube protect the middle ear? So auditory tube helps in protection of middle ear by, as it prevents the transmission of high sound pressure waves from the nasopharynx into the middle ear cavity. So consider this to be the nasopharynx and consider this to be the middle ear cavity, and this is the auditory tube. So high sound waves that is entering the auditory tube from the nasopharynx is logged here, and it does not allow the further transmission of the high sound waves into the middle ear cavity. So moving on to the third function. So it's moving on to the third function, clearance of middle ear. So we have already seen in the histological slide that the entire auditory tube has cilia, right? So an important point note here is this cilia beat in the direction of the nasopharynx. Okay, so this cilia beats in the direction of towards the nasopharynx. So third important function is clearance of middle ear cavity. So how does it clear? The cilia which is present in the auditory tube will be continuously beating in the direction of the nasopharynx. Hence, the secretions that are secreted in the middle ear cavity is continuously beaten by the cilia into the nasopharynx. So it does not help in the it prevents the accumulation of the secretions in the auditory tube, in the middle ear cavity. It keeps on beating these secretions into the nasopharynx. So yes, moving into the blood supply and the nerve supply. So blood supply and nerve supply is not important as far as the examination point of view is concerned. So for completion's sake, I have added the blood supply and the nerve supply. So just remember the names of the arterial and venous supply as well as the nerve supply. So yes, the auditory tube is supplied, arterial supply is from the ascending pharyngeal, middle meningeal, and the artery of pterygoid canal. Venous supply is by the pharyngeal and the pterygoid plexus, and lymphatic drainage is by the retropharyngeal lymph node. So blood supply of the auditory tube is by the ascending pharyngeal, middle meningeal, and the artery of the pterygoid canal. Venous supply is by the pharyngeal and pterygoid plexus, and lymphatics is by retropharyngeal lymph nodes. Now moving on to the nerve supply of the auditory tube. So the nerves that supply the cartilaginous part is the nervus spinosus branch of the mandibular nerve, and the nerve supply of the bony part is by the tympanic plexus of glossopharyngeal nerve. So summarizing the blood supply and nerve supply of the auditory tube, the arterial supply is by the ascending pharyngeal and middle meningeal artery and the artery of pterygoid canal. The venous supply is by the pharyngeal and pterygoid plexus, and lymphatics is by the retropharyngeal lymph nodes. Moving on to the nerve supply, the cartilaginous part is supplied by the nervus spinosus branch of the mandibular nerve, and the bony part is supplied by the tympanic plexus of glossopharyngeal nerve. So now moving into the applied anatomy of the auditory tube. So applied anatomy must mainly concentrate the in applied anatomy is mainly concentrate two age groups, the pediatric age group and the adultery age group. So the main important applied anatomy in these two groups are in pediatric group. So before moving on to the applied anatomy, I would like to just mention the difference of the auditory tube in both adult and children. Okay, in adult, the so yes, in the major difference between the tympanic tube of adult and children is that um, in the adult, the tympanic tube is large. It is larger than that in a child, and its direction is you already seen it. Direction is downwards, forwards, and medially, right? So this is in the case of adult, but in the case of a child, the direction of the auditory tube is horizontal. So what is the disadvantage of the tube to be horizontal is that this so the infections that are occurring in the pharynx can easily spread to the middle ear cavity and may cause infection to the middle ear cavity. Okay, if this is if the auditory tube is slanting, the infection can't go upwards, right? But in the child it is horizontal, which means the infection from the pharynx can easily move to the middle ear cavity and cause infections in the middle ear cavity. And another point which helps to understand this is we have studied about the isthmus, right? The isthmus in adults is angulated, that is, it is basically constricted, so it's like this. So this is cartilaginous part, this is bony part, and this angulation is the isthmus. So in adults the isthmus is angulated, whereas in the child there is no angulation present in the isthmus. So these two are the basic differences between the adult and child. And also another major difference is that the adult's tympanic tube is larger, and a child's tympanic tube, or the auditory tube is shorter, wide, and horizontal. So this helps us to infer that in child, since the auditory tube is horizontal, the infections from the pharynx can easily spread to the middle ear and causing infections to the middle ear. Okay. So yes, another important applied anatomy is eustachian catarrh. The eustachian catarrh is nothing but inflammation of the auditory tube. The etiology to this is common cold. Okay. So yes, this point will do for the applied anatomy. So eustachian catarrh is nothing but inflammation to the auditory tube. So yes, now moving on to the summary. Okay, few basic points about what is an auditory tube. So auditory tube in an adult is approximately 36 millimeter in length. So auditory tube, so generally auditory tube will be closed during a normal physiological condition. During normal conditions, the auditory tube is closed. So this part, right, this part is the main part of the opening. This is the opening of the auditory tube. This part is already this part is generally closed, and this part opens only when you are eating or yawning. So this is a point to be noted. The auditory tube is generally closed. It opens only when you do activities like eating or yawning. So moving on to the summary, auditory tube in adults is approximately 36 millimeter in length. It is made up of two parts, the bony part and the cartilaginous part. So auditory tube is nothing but it is a osteocartilaginous channel connecting the tympanic cavity and the nasopharynx. So it is made up of two parts, the bony part and the cartilaginous part. The bony part is the posterolateral part, which is 1/3 the entire length of the auditory tube. The cartilaginous part is the anteromedial part, which corresponds to 2/3 the entire length of the auditory tube. Another point of importance is that this histologically it is lined by stutostratified ciliate columnar epithelium, and the cilia helps in um, the presence of cilia is the cilia beats in the direction of nasopharynx. So these are the points regarding the parts of the auditory tube. Now moving on to the functions of auditory tube. The three important functions of auditory tube are that first important point is it helps in maintaining air pressure equilibrium on either side of tympanic membrane. Second, it protects the middle ear cavity. Third point, it helps in the clearance of middle ear cavity. So these three are the important functions of the auditory tube. And finally, the important upper anatomy is that in pediatric age group, since the auditory tube is horizontal and short, horizontal and short, the infections from the pharynx can easily spread to the middle ear and cause infections of the middle ear cavity. So this is regarding the pediatric age group. And adult age group, an important upper anatomy is eustachian cataract, which means inflammation of the auditory tube. The common etiology is due to common cold. So with this note, we'll be ending this lecture on auditory tube. So yes, if you have any doubts regarding this, just post it in the comment box and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.